All right. Hello, my name is Matt Osius. I am a product manager here at Amazon Quicksite. We're going to be giving a presentation that'll start with myself and then end with Arun doing an actual live demo for you. What we would like to talk about is augmented business intelligence. It's bringing the machine learning capabilities of Quicksite and the machine learning capabilities of your organization to a wider audience, with the help of Quicksite. So towards that end, what I wanted to do was sort of start with an overview of what Quicksite is. So certainly at the highest level, Quicksite is a business intelligence software, or rather a business intelligence service that Amazon has in its cloud. It is a fully cloud-based service that will auto scale. It is serverless, managed for you, making it easy to deploy. And we bring those sort of the power that AWS has to offer in terms of ML, AI, search, anomaly detection, and forecasting, as well as the sort of pay for what you use and auto scaling ability that you come to expect and get used to from AWS. One of the more popular uses of our service is the fact that it also is embeddable, making it very easy to make it a part of your application or your service, wherever that is, as well as our sort of deep integration with AWS services. And aside from the sort of storage layer you might expect, like S3, as well as RDS, Redshift, etc., it's also that integration, and today especially, that we're going to talk about with Sagemaker. The last bit on there, right, which is unique to, I think, this BI service in many ways, is the fact that it's a pay-per-usage model. So you can go from nothing to an enormous deployment, only paying for what you use without having to deal with any servers. The ML portion of our product is where I focus most of my time. And so these are these sort of key offerings that we have. First, we have an auto narrative feature, which allows you to take your data and turn it into natural text, whether that be sort of going, listing out the anomalies that you see, or listing out, the top entries, or iterating through certain results. You can take those insights and turn it into text. Next, we have our ML predictions, which we'll go over in great detail about how we can use the power of SageMaker models that you build in order to display those and share them with the company, take action on them. We have our recently announced, I think it was at the last reInvent when we announced Q, which is a natural language processing system that allows you to interact with Quicksite by simply typing the questions you have. You don't need to know a certain language or structure. You're literally just typing English questions to say how many, show me sales last year, filter it down to just the West region, and you can go through and just get those answers. It brings the power of Quicksite even more universally across anyone. Anyone that can ask a question can get that answer. Built into the product, we also have anomaly detection and forecasting. These two services make it very easy for anyone in your organization to be able to sort of bring that sort of optimized models of time series anomaly detection, as well as time series forecasting, sort of with nothing more than a single click, staying right within the product. You can get alerts, and especially with the relatively new threshold alert system, you can make that data find you by using these sort of services. So a few examples of what that auto narrative looks like, how people sometimes can go quite heavy, as you see on the right side, with specifics on every bit of the business. You can also kind of just intersperse it throughout, like you see on the left side, to enhance the visuals that you're already building. And those are fully customizable. You can go anywhere from one click all the way up to sort of literally customizing each and every word in there if that's what you need to, including the ability to branch between different scenarios. So if this, write it in red. If this, write it in green. If this, use the specific language. If that, do something else. And so you have, as easy as it is to just quickly drop it in where you need it, you can also customize that to exactly what you need. The forecast is as simple as a one click as well. You can put it on any time series data, and it helps you take pretty much any user, including sort of the end users of a dashboard, who can quickly take a look at that forecast and get an extrapolation of where the data is headed. Our anomaly detection, like I mentioned, is a quick way to explore not just when data points stand out from prior trends, but also to get those alerts directly into your inbox. And so again, that way, it's like having a team of analysts watching your data all the time and then reaching out to let you know, hey, something unusual has happened. Something we don't typically see has just gone on. And with the power of contribution analysis, you can dive into each of those anomalies to see what's driving it. For example, in the one you see on the right, we see that video game sales took an unexpected increase, and it looks like it came primarily from PS4 sort of sales. And so you get these like deep dives into the data that help you figure out not just what happened, but probably getting towards why it happened and what portions were there. But certainly, if you are of the data scientist persuasion or have that capability, the ultimate in model development is going to be Sagemaker, and it is an incredibly powerful tool in order to develop models. But it does come with one challenge when it comes to sort of getting these results. If you want to make use of that model, not only do you have to store and keep the input data up to date all the time, make sure it's refreshing, make sure it's being used. You then also have to make sure you run a schedule of when those inferences happen, and making sure that runs on a routine, there's no errors, constantly following up on that. You have to take the output from those inference runs and store it somewhere. You then have to merge that input with the output. You then have to push that merged data to another repository somewhere where it's accessible. And lastly, you get to visualize it. So if you want to take sort of the power and the implication of those models that you build and put it out into wider use, it's actually quite a great deal of infrastructure that you have to set up and maintain in order to do that. So what we did at Quicksite was made all of that kind of orchestrate from right within Quicksite. Now you're already able to connect to your data sources in Quicksite. Quicksite can manage automatically refreshing those for you. So if you have information in RDS or Redshift or S3 or any of numerous other options, you can automatically have Quicksite bring that data in on a schedule, alerting you if anything goes wrong. And then if you already have that model made in Sagemaker, Quicksite will take care of merging those two things together. Every time we bring in new data from your source, what we'll do is we'll automatically run the inference with Sagemaker, automatically bring that back and merge it all together so that you can use it in your dashboard. So if, sort of a canonical example that I like to use is usually around home sales. If you had trained a model on how to price a home based on things like zip code, square footage, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and you maintained, you already had a data set of all available listings, it would be as simple as selecting the home price model from a dropdown within Quicksite, telling Quicksite, hey, these fields from my data source, such as number of bathrooms, number of bedrooms, square feet, correspond to the inputs to my model, and then just hitting go. And automatically, it's all scheduled, it all runs on a routine. You don't have to worry about any ETL cycles or monitoring anything. And then you just get the benefit of visualizing that on the output. So with that intro to sort of Quicksite and machine learning, and specifically our Sagemaker integration, I would now like to turn you over to Arun, who is going to demo this live as we take a look at how that integration works, what it looks like, and what you have to do to get it done.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. I'm Arun Santosh. I'm a senior solution architect with Quicksite. Like Matt said, I'll be taking you through a demo of Sagemaker integration with Quicksite today. So the use case we are looking at is we have sales data for a fictitious software company, and we have data for several years, including the current year. We also have a training data set here, wherein for the last 3 years, we have data as to whether an order was completed within SLA or not. So that's this SLA met column. It will have values is or no, indicating whether the order was completed within the set SLA or not. So we'll use this training data set to train a SageMaker model, and then we will plug that model into Quicksite so that as new data gets loaded, we are able to run this model and get the prediction as to whether those new orders are expected to complete within SLA or not. That way, the sales team can then look at the orders which are predicted not to meet the SLA, and they can do something about it. Either try to meet the SLA by pushing the order through, or at least reach out to the client, explain that there are some delays going on, and it might be a little bit more than what they expect. So let's see how this can be done. Starting from the AWS console, let's launch SageMaker. I'll just search for it in the search bar up top and launch SageMaker. In here, I can launch Amazon SageMaker Studio by selecting it from the left panel. And I can make it do all the work for me without knowing anything about artificial intelligence or machine learning. I can have SageMaker just look at my training data and come up with the best model to make the prediction for me. I'm running this in one account right now, but these steps would take more time to stabilize. So I have the model set up in another account, and I'll be flipping over to that account once I show you the initial steps. So selecting Amazon SageMaker Studio from left panel brings me to this configuration screen. Herein, I got to just give it a name. I'm going to call this my SageMaker, and I have to set up a role. It does give me the option to create a new role, so I'll choose that. Asks me to select the S3 bucket permissions. I'm going to stick with the default here and choose create role option. Says the role has been created, and now it shows up under the existing role as well. You can see today's timestamp. Make that selection and hit submit. So now it says it's preparing the SageMaker Studio. This, like the message says, is a one-time configuration, but the first time around, it's going to take a little bit of time for it to stabilize and for the studio to stabilize. So I'll be flipping over to a different account where I have this set up and ready to go. Now I'm on my account where all of this is set up. I'm going to again search for SageMaker, launch that, and launch SageMaker Studio. So you can see here that my SageMaker instance is already created here. I can open the studio by selecting the Open Studio button there. And it opens up the studio for me. So in here, I have the option to create a new Autopilot experiment. This is what I will choose. Let's create a new one to make the prediction for whether our orders will meet the SLA or not. And it's quite simple to set this up. I have set up an S3 bucket, and I have loaded the training data set, which I showed you earlier, into that bucket. Now I'll be using that here. Just enter a name, order completion SLA. And for the S3 bucket, I search for my bucket, which is already set up. And from therein, I have to select the training data set. In here, we have to tell SageMaker what is the column that we want SageMaker to predict, learn to predict with this training data. So SLA met is the column where we had those yes or no values. Select that here. And we also got to give it an output location where it can create interim files, models, and all that. So I have created an output folder within the same bucket. The machine learning problem type, if we do not know this, we could leave it at auto. But in my case, I know it's an yes or no value that I'm trying to get the model to learn to predict. So I'm going to select binary classification as the type. I do not want this automatically deploying the model, so I'll turn that off and choose to create this experiment. So that's pretty much it in terms of kicking SageMaker off. So now as this message says here, SageMaker will run 250 models, look at the training data and come up with a model that's best suited to predict whether SLAs will be met or not. This can take several hours to run. So I have pre-trained this model. I have 2 copies here. Let's look at one of those copies and see what the view is going to be like once it finishes going through all these 250 models. So I choose describe AutoML job on the earlier one that I had trained. You can see it ran a whole bunch of models here, and it has identified that the best model suited to predict based on the training data I loaded is this one. So I can click this, select this model, it says 1 row selected, and I can choose to deploy this. And while deploying, it gives me 2 options, either for real-time predictions or batch predictions. For Quicksite really uses the batch prediction, but to get that model into a published state, it's more simple to go with the real-time prediction option here. And then I will show you what extra step you have to do to avoid incurring additional cost. So I'm just going to call this my order completion SLE copy 1. And that's pretty much it. I give it a name, I click deploy model. Now the model has been deployed, and if I flip back to SageMaker console, I should be able to see it. So let's go take a look at that. From left panel, I click on inference and look under models. See that order completion SLA copy 1 model has been published. And I'll look under endpoints. We'll see that copy 1 endpoint is being created currently. It's in creating mode. We do not want this running because it's going to incur additional cost. This is needed only if you're doing live inference. So I'll show you how you could delete it. I have the earlier version still running here. It shows in service, so I can select that. And from actions, delete it. So that takes care of it. And once this instance stabilizes and comes into the in-service mode, I'll be deleting this as well. At this point, we are in good shape to plug in Quicksite to access the model. However, before we go into that, I will also show you a schema file that we'll be using in making that integration. So within the schema file, we specify what's the input and output content type. So we are going to use CSV. And we mention what all are the input columns that we'll be using and the data type of those columns. Likewise, we have the output column, which in our case is the prediction. Will SLA be met? And its type. We also specify the instance type to be used to run this batch transform. So that's mentioned here. Details on how this file can be set up is available in our documentation. The link to that will be provided as part of the deck with this presentation. Now switching back to AWS console, let's launch a new instance really here. And I will launch Quicksite. So if you're coming to Quicksite and using Sagemaker integration for the very first time, you have to allow Quicksite to access the Sagemaker service. So for that, you will need to go into the admin panel. So by clicking this username drop-down up top, you can access the Manage Quicksite option. And therein, you can look at security and permissions, add remove option here. I already have SageMaker enabled, but if you're coming and doing this for the very first time, you wouldn't have this. So you would go into add or remove, and then just check the box against SageMaker and update. In my case, it's already enabled, so I'll cancel out of this and click the Quicksite icon to return to my console. Now we can load the SaaS sales data set and then augment it with the SageMaker model, which we published. So for that, I start in my dataset screen and choose the new dataset option. Choose to upload a file and select my SaaS sales CSV file. The data gets uploaded into Quicksite, and then we will go into editing that data set and plug in the model. So from here, I get to see a quick preview of the data that's loaded. And let's click on this edit settings and prepare data. Brings us to this dataset edit interface. In here, we have the option to augment the data with SageMaker. I'll choose that. And I can make a selection of my model. So the model that I just now created, copy one model, I can select that. And then load the schema file. So I'll make that schema file selection there, upload it. We can see that all the input and output fields show up here. Going on to the next screen. Herein, these are the fields in the schema, and these are the fields in the data set. I use the same name, so it has auto-matched everything. In your case, if the names happen to be different, you can definitely pick and choose from your data set and plug in the right field to the field in the schema. Clicking the next. And herein, we see the output. So will SLA be met? I have the option to rename this if I want to. For now, I'll just leave it with the same name and choose to prepare data. It says changes are not saved and SageMaker data inference starts after we save this. And it's a batch inference. It's going to take 4 to 5 minutes to run. So if I scroll this preview to the right, it will show up as I'm available. And it tells you the reason that field inference begins only once we save this. And I'll go ahead and save and publish this. Now, since this takes 5 to 6 minutes to run, I have done that on a copy earlier. So my SaaS sales copy 2, I have already plugged in a similar model, and I have run that batch inference ahead of time. Before we go into that, we'll see that this particular data set, which we just now did, it says that it's now in import mode. So it will be running that batch inference in the backend and then bringing in the data. On the pre-generated data set, I'll now choose create analysis option. It brings me to the analysis interface of Quicksite. This is where we build visuals, where we design our dashboards and then publish it out. So to see this in action, we see that there are all these columns that's available in our data set, and the prediction column, will SLA be met, is also available here. So if I just click on that, it's giving me yes and no values. This is what SageMaker predicted when I ran this Spice data set before. Let's change this to be a donut chart. So we can see here that there are close to 10,000 records, and about 3/4 of them are predicted to meet the SLA, and the other 1/4 to exceed the SLA. But it doesn't quite show us the percentages here. We can quickly do some formatting to bring that in. I'll click this Format Visual option, click on Data Labels from the Format Visual dialog, and choose to show metric. Now it shows me the percentages as well as the actual row counts there. I want to see just the percentage there. I can choose the metric label style and choose percent only. So it shows me just the percentages. Now for the ones that's yes, maybe I want to show it in a green color. So let's change that to be green. And the ones that set to exceed the SLA, I want to show it in orange. Right? Make that change. Also, this is showing data for several years. I want to look at only the current year's data. I can easily do that by applying a filter on my data set. I'll filter on the order date and choose to add filter for this field. So it creates a filter on my order date. Click on that, and I will choose the scope of this to be for all applicable visuals, because I'll be adding one more table here in a little while. And I want this filter to apply to that too. Now I'll choose this to be a relative date filter, showing data for this year, and hit apply. So now we can see it's showing lesser number of records here. I can also add this control to my sheet. Add that to my sheet. And now this is going through end of the year. We have some more data going through the end of the year. I will just set this to show me data only till July. So you can see the number went down further. And I'll pin this control to the top collapsible controls panel. So if I want to come back and change it, I can, but it gets out of the way of my visuals. I'll add one more visual here, make it a table type, and let's bring in the order date as well as the order ID and the prediction column. Now let's sort it in reverse order so we can see the most recent orders. We see here that there are several which are predicted to stay within SLA, some that exceeds SLA. And I want to focus on the ones which are predicted to exceed the SLA, which won't meet the SLA here. So I can do that quite easily by doing a filter action from my donut. I'll just click on actions here and say filter same sheet visuals. So now if I click on no, the other visual will filter down to show me just the ones which are predicted to go beyond the SLA. Let's add a quick title here as well, and then we will publish this out. I'll just call this my order SLA predictions. And we will share this out as a dashboard. Publish it. And I can now share it with anybody else from my team who I want to give access to this and let them take actions on it. And they will be able to just see the dashboard object, and they can still interact with it, look at the orders which are set to exceed the SLA, and then take an action from it. We can dig into more details of these orders in the order management system that can be configured using URL actions. Or if we want to embed the order management system right within the dashboard itself, we can use our custom content visual to do that, and then bring up the order info right within the dashboard. So that's an end-to-end view of how you can easily train a model in SageMaker using Autopilot, bring that into Quicksite and visualize with it. You can, of course, plug in your custom models as well. And hope this was good use of your time. Thank you all and have a nice day ahead.